Bob wants to talk about it, or Brenda, you want to bring up some of the comments and some of the thoughts from our student leaders, and or some discussion that they had as we kind of disseminated this out to them for them to take a look at it.
Yeah, so just further on that, this this draft, after the committee reviewed it and provided the changes and the revisions,
Right.
It was then sent out through Mr. Cosienda and the Center for Youth Leadership to the student leaders in that organization for their information and feedback. And I think Bob has that feedback from them.
Okay, that would be great.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Second of all of these students cannot wait to take classes with Eddie Fergus at Temple or his team at NYU, and they want to be hired by Richard Lemons. Because the back and forth with Richard Lemons and this group of students was really dynamic, and they want to be hired by him at some point. So Brenda and I went through this pretty thoroughly. I then sent Heidi and Brenda the comments from the 13 leaders of our groups at McMahon, and they were pretty much in consensus that they agreed, generally speaking, with the statement. I believe they came in with a couple of comments based on the statement out of Easton District. It may have been a little duplicative, but they wanted me to forward it to you, and it was basically described like all of the protected classes. And I think one protected class that's missing still from this is if you look at the second paragraph, socioeconomic status. We know it's mentioned in the final paragraph. So it's up to you guys. Like they're not really pushing for it. They thought it should be in the second paragraph, socioeconomic status. And then they really had a at-length discussion about policies. And they don't understand why a simple statement about policies is not in here. So if you look at the third paragraph, culturally relevant curricula, they said, why can't it be culturally relevant curricula and policies? Like the statement from several of them was, it's almost like the Board of Ed is letting themselves off the hook. Like, why can't they just say policies?
I'm glad you brought that up, Bob.
I'm sorry, Dr. McBride?
I'm glad you brought that up because as I read through literally sitting here, when I went through identities regardless of race, gender, I thought about socioeconomic status, and then I saw it at the bottom. I was like, well, they still address it, but I think it'll be good to create the continuity and explicitness of stating it there as well.
Right.
A great idea on behalf of the students. So I'm in agreement with it.
Well, then let me push your buttons a little bit, because they really liked some aspects of the Easton statement, and one of it also included political perspectives. I know that opens up a can of worms. I get it. Dr. McBride, you can't laugh, man, because they deal with this at school all day, and they talk to their friends.
No, I was just laughing at the can of worms that you said it's going to open. That's all. That's why I was laughing.
So, Bob, could you tease out for me an example of some of the political perspectives you're referencing?
Well, I don't think they're in, like, nothing in particular. It's just that they have so many of their discussions are influenced by politics, on the left or the right, center, that they felt like it could be represented here, because so many of their discussions are influenced, clouded by, driven by, impacted by politics. We talk a lot about in our groups, and the world revolves around two things: politics and money. And to not include politics, but again, and they understand politics can't be discussed by teachers. Right. Well, it is, and even though it may be informal. So Heidi, I don't know.
I just think thank you, Bob. And we felt it was, policy committee members that from the get-go, we had input from our student leaders, and we didn't want it to just say, okay, many of them have moved on and that's it. I know you reached out to some that have moved on to college. You wanted to make sure that that core group had some insight and had some say in what we were doing. So I'm thrilled that they're pretty much in agreement on what we have. I feel adding the policies, using culturally relevant curriculum policies, I think makes sense. I know Dr. McBride, I could talk to the committee members as well. But expanding this, I think, we want to have a statement. It's really important that we have something out there. And I think the future of our board, we would want to have a policy at some point. It's not going to just stop at this statement. There's a lot more that needs to be said, but I feel like we want to have something out there that we can disseminate out to our schools. So we have some kind of equity statement, and then to kind of elaborate or piggyback on that, eventually we can work on having a policy and maybe having those some of the verbiage that you had just mentioned that perhaps we can put in. But I think if we could add, maybe Brenda, I don't know if you can add in the curriculum policies. And if the board, I'm sorry, if the policy committee is in agreement on that, we can add that. I think we should definitely add that, is my feeling on this. Was there something else that they were also thinking that, you know?
No, and Heidi, maybe I
Yeah,
misspoke.
right.
It was not just a policy about equity.
Right.
It was policies across the board that are
Okay.
influenced by, like, it's every policy.
Okay.
Is it,
Oh,
is it
okay.
more,
Okay.
because in that paragraph, Bob, we're actually talking about schools.
Right.
Right.
So is it actually more of the practices in the classroom versus the policies, which has, a Board of Education meaning unto itself?
Well, that's a good point. Could both not be included? Like the comment, so the politics comment primarily came from our graduates who are now in college, which they
Right.
talk about politics all the time. But the one about the policies come from the current students, and they were joking. They said the Board of Ed is letting themselves off the hook. Like, why? Like, where is their commitment here other than to curriculum and teachers and all that? But they are the ones who set the policies. And are they using an equity lens when they set policies? That's their point.
Mhm. Okay.
So maybe it doesn't go in the third paragraph,
Right.
Brenda. Like, I don't know where
Right.
you would put it, but.
Well, and I agree as well with Dr. McBride in terms of, and the students, I think from what I'm hearing from Heidi and the community as well, the need to put socioeconomic status up here,
Mhm.
make sure it's reflected in this list right here.
Right.
Yeah.
So Heidi, is that something you want to add into
Yes,
this
I think
list
it-
up here?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Does the committee have a feeling for where it belongs in the flow of this list?
I'm trying to look. We're staying united and respecting all identities. What if it went after status or disability, like right after that first, I think that's a long sentence, right after that first sentence, after or disability? And we can put it in and see how it flows as we read it back.
How about if we went socio
Okay, yep.
economic or citizens or socio. Thoughts? Or do you want to do regardless of race, socioeconomic status, gender identity or expression?
I think it can go in either place. I mean, I think if you put it in, we can look at it, just a visual, and then we can discuss it. But I think as long as it's in there and it kind of makes sense if it's in the second paragraph. Yeah. Policy committee members, I'll wait, Brenda, for you to finish that.
Yep.
Do you agree with that? I think it looks good there.
It looks good there.
All right, Godfrey,
Yeah.
is that a yeah? Okay. Okay.
So Heidi, the other thing that came up that Brenda explained per Eddie Fergus was there's nothing in here about staff. And she
Right.
explained to me, and then I related to the students
Yeah.
why staff is not included, and they were okay with that. But they did keep coming back to policies. So you're going to need to give me something to go back to them with if you're not going to include it. Just so I can help them understand.
So I definitely want to take the feedback of the kids, as it pertains to policies.
Right.
And what I'm, grappling with internally is if the mention of policy is to assure that we are making policies with awareness for how they may disproportionately impact one group more than another. And before getting into the equity lens, that is the forever standing check and balance. Being mindful of where a policy is created, will have more of a disproportionate impact on one group than another. And if there was any practice that I thought a board to be held accountable for, it would be that. And I think it would help really just require us to open up our lens of the individual cultures and student needs represented in the district. All that said, I don't have a recommendation for verbiage
Right.
to capture, the duty of assuring that policies created are, we are clear on the disproportionate impact it will have on groups.
Right,
I'm actually,
but I think that's a good way of putting it, but why can't it be put in writing?
I think because right at the moment, since we're starting on policies,
Mhm.
we don't have an idea of where to put it or how to even word it, since this is all new and we're just starting to try to put it down on paper. So I think that's where our issue is. We would want to make sure that we word it correctly and appropriately. And right now, because this is the first step on policy,
Mhm.
we can't really talk about policies in general when we're just working on this now.
And this is Diana,
No.
and thank you for that. That's a good point. I also want to add that, we discussed having an actual policy and like an equity policy. We have a draft equity statement. But that doesn't mean that this draft equity statement, Bob, can't be tweaked and changed along the way. We've done that with many, we've done it with
Right.
statements. We've done it, I can't tell you how many policies have come back through CABE that we had to kind of change, redo over time. And we had an
Right.
audit on that and we made lots of changes. So this isn't set in stone, but I think my concern, and I won't even say, well, I guess it would be a concern is, we've spent a lot of time and it's important that we have this dialogue and the conversation and our student leaders so important. You know that. I believe
I do, yes.
100% in that, absolutely having their voice. But I also want to make sure we get something out there. And I think, we had something a lot larger and more verbiage on this and we kind of condensed it. And I think sometimes it has more impact and has more meaning when it's formulated in this way. So I think my feeling on this is I think we've made some changes. I think it looks good. Doesn't mean that we can't make changes along the way. And if we were tonight, let's say, I don't know if it'll happen, I'm hopeful it will, that we were to pass this onto the board or approve it tonight and pass it to the board, we would be able to at least get this out to our schools. We don't have anything of this nature now. So at least
Correct.
we would have
Can I jump
something.
in?
Yep, go
Can I
ahead.
jump in off a small,
Yeah.
simple addition that may solve our problem?
Sure.
The board believes that a
Yeah.
high-quality school district provides equitable opportunities, policies, facilities, and experiences that produce meaningful outcomes for all scholars.
Heidi, that's exactly what I was going to suggest.
Okay. So why
But
don't
that's
we?
the last sentence Dr. McBride is referring to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just do
which
the
we
work, 'cause
have.
you're listing all the ways that we're going to be
Right.
doing it, whether it be through
Mhm.
opportunities, facilities, experiences. You could throw policy and what that looks like will vary, but I think just naming it there is fine and it solves all the
So
bucket.
if we put the board believes that a high quality school district provides equitable opportunities policies, however we're going to, facilities and experiences that produce meaningful outcomes for all, we have that in caps, all scholars. So at least if we can put that, I think we talked about putting something in with policies, but we could certainly add that in.
I will leave opportunities first, Brenda, then put policies.
Okay,
Okay,
Then
opportunities. Okay,
opportunities, policies.
Yep.
Facilities,
Sure.
all the E's.
Yep. IES, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
The board believes that a high-quality school district provides equitable opportunities, policies, facilities, and experiences that produce meaningful outcomes for all scholars.
Our members will be ecstatic.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think it's more appropriate there than in the third paragraph, which
sure.
speaks more to schools. So I think that's a great suggestion.
This looks good. I think this looks really good. I'm hopeful our next meeting, we can get this through, so this, we can get this in all of our schools, framed, however it is, right in the building. As soon as anybody comes in, they see this. And, Bob, during our last policy meeting, as a committee, we discussed, having dialogues with our principals, and our principals having dialogues with their staff. So everybody is aware of a statement like this and the impact that it has. And, Brenda discussed having it framed in all of our buildings. We want to get that out there and making sure it's visible and everybody sees that walking into any elementary, middle, or high school in Norwalk. Everybody's quiet. Does anybody have a comment?
No,
So I agree with you. Actually, as I was telling Alex and Godfrey, the idea is that this is going to anchor all of the equity work in our districts, schools, because literally now schools will then have to identify a specific area of focus and create tangible systems or structures as to how they're addressing equity in their school based off of this. So as quickly as we can kind of solidify this, it will allow us to really begin the in-depth school level work and equity teamwork around really defining it in tangible ways for the schools themselves. So I agree, Heidi.
Oh, good. I'm relieved. No, it's great because we've had so much input on this, and you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs that have so much impact. And it's, again, we dwindled it down for something larger to something smaller. And I think less is more in this case, but it definitely says what we want to convey and how important it is for Norwalk Public Schools. So Godfrey or Diana, do you have any thoughts at all? Or, if you don't, you don't, but if you have any things that you want to add?
I'm glad we solicited input from the students.
No, yeah, for sure.
And I think this is a working draft that I'm comfortable presenting to the board.
Okay.
Right.
Good.
I'm very comfortable with it too, especially since, we took the students and a lot of people in general to put this together, and we didn't put it together overnight. So
Nope.
I do like the way it reads.
And I think we know with policy, not everything takes, 1 meeting and you're done, right? Like sometimes it takes subsequent many meetings to get something like this, and lots of feedback and lots of input and focus groups, and which we've all done. So this was, I think, a work in progress, but well needed, and something that we needed to get done. So, and I think we all feel good about it, including our students, and they're our voice, right? They really are. So I'm thankful that, Bob, that you've been part of this from the beginning with our student leaders. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, no, they very much appreciate the opportunity.
Great.
So is the next step to go to policy, then to regulation over time?
No, the next step would be if we approve it tonight, it's going to go to the full board for discussion. And there might be a way we can have discussion on possible action. So I'm going to review that. But it's got to go for the board for discussion and then action from there.
Right.
Yep. So I think something like this we possibly could do in one step.
Okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions before we put this for a vote? No. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Do I have a motion to approve this equity statement?
Motion to approve.
So moved. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is great. This is perfect. So thank you for everybody's input on this. And I think that was our agenda item tonight. I didn't know how long this would take tonight and what discussion, but we've had so much discussion on this, and I think we were able to kind of put our thoughts with our student leaders and proper verbiage on this. So I think we are good. So thank you to everyone. And I think that's it, unless anybody has any final thoughts at all. I see just happy faces. Okay, so that means no other final thoughts. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody, tonight. It really feels good to have this completed, and especially having final input from our student leaders. So we will continue to do the good work, Bob, with our student leaders and other policies, which we've always done and which I've always felt has been really important in hearing their voice. So thank you.
Yep.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Diana, second?
Second.
All in favor? So moved. Thank you. Good night, everybody, and we'll see
Good
everybody
night.
later. Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.